It is the peak of another rainy season, a time of the year when people living in flood-prone areas sleep with one eye closed. Now they are constantly on the alert, as in recent times the country has been witnessing increasing frequency of flood occurrence, often with devastating impact. Now, based on the 2023 weather prediction and following warnings of severe flooding by NIMET and other relevant agencies, states have stepped up mitigation efforts to avert a recurrence of the 2022 devastating flood in collaboration with the National Emergency Management Agency to implement strategies and emergency response plans. These are through early warnings, continuous monitoring, removing obstacles to free flow of water, enlightenment and sensitization campaigns on the need to relocate to safer grounds. What lessons have been learned from last year's flood disaster in 33 states? How effective are the current national flood response plans? I have two guests in the studio. Director General, Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, Clement Nze, and Dr. Onimode Bandele, Director Research Planning and Forecasting, NEMA, to talk more on how these strategies and efforts are reducing the impact of flood disaster in the country. I am Jummai Yusuf. First, let's get the news. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has advised the United States of America to ensure that its policy is intentionally collaborative with the independent African democracies at a time when they are under assault by anti-democratic forces within and outside. The president, who received the U.S. Presidential Envoy and Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, Ambassador Molifi, this Saturday, noted that American-backed development finance and multilateral institutions, which were designed to support war-torn Europe after World War II, require swift and comprehensive reform to meet the developmental requirements of younger democracies in Africa, which operate in authoritarian, crowded environments. He said, this is to ensure that the legitimate yearnings of Africans would no longer be manipulated to serve the narrow aims of self-seeking agitators through unconstitutional takeovers of government. President Tinubu explained that the private sector will lead the way within an enabling environment created for them. But the U.S. government must be innovative in its thinking and systematically creating incentives for U.S. industrial investment in Nigeria. The president said under his leadership, Nigeria stands ready to address their specific regulatory, tax and environmental concerns, as he is determined to create prosperity for all Nigerian families. The Nigerian leader affirmed that the crisis in Niger Republic would not deter him from concluding his economic reform program successfully for the benefit of Nigerians, and that he takes a cue from no nation, but will only advance the interests of the Nigerian state in his approach towards ECOWAS' handling of the regional standoff. The ECOWAS chairman declared that war is not ideal for its economic reforms nor for the region, but the defense of democracy is sacrosanct, which is why the bloc's consensus is that it will not allow anyone to insincerely buy time, pledging its support for the position of ECOWAS. The U.S. Special Presidential Envoy expressed the high regard of the U.S. administration has for the leadership of the chairman of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and extended an exclusive invitation from U.S. President Joe Biden to meet on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in New York to advance discussions further in late September. Minister of Foreign Affairs Yusuf Tuga disclosed that the parties also discussed trade and bilateral relations between Nigeria and the United States.
Other things, the return to democracy and normalcy is paramount. The security concerns in the region also very important. Both sides are pleased. Of course, we're going to Anga, so there will be sideline meetings there also to continue along the same lines.
Meanwhile, the attention of the Renewed Hope initiative is shifting to agriculture and health, two among its key intervention areas. Coming out of a meeting with zonal coordinators for the initiative, Nigeria's First Lady Oluremi Tinubu says plans are afoot to promote food security in the country by equipping a total of 370 farmers across the country with seedlings, pesticides and fertilizer.
So we have the arrangement with NAD Fund, and thinking that those who need extra training, it will be done. And if they need, we are looking at also giving them resources, financial resources as well, and vehicle that can transport from farm to the market.
And by the time we'll meet next, we'll have a list of these farmers. We are looking at 20 farmers in each state, and by hopefully soon we'll have that list, and we'll also have the programs and training and the grants that we have, the ROHI has for them.
The initiative will also support the establishment of farm markets in strategic locations across the country towards facilitating easy access to fresh farm produce.
People who have home gardens. So the first peak, because we want everybody, we're going to just have just one winner. So the state will send us one picture of the garden, which our team will go and observe. So, but the winner will go, will be encouraged with a sum of 5 million naira. So those are the things, because we want people to grow. You're not even excited with the 5 million. You better start growing a garden in your house. So those are part of the incentive to make sure that at least we can address issues of food security.
Measures to stamp out polio and sanitize birth registration process in partnership with UNICEF are also being worked out. In the meantime, a Nigeria where every child can access the best education available regardless of their circumstances is possible. And this lofty desire can move beyond the realm of vision to reality with the right support system. Nigeria's First Lady Oluremi Tinubu stated this at the flag-off of the National Scholarship Program for Tertiary Education by the Renewed Hope Initiative in Abuja. State House correspondent Adeni Taiwo reports that 46 indigenous students drawn from tertiary institutions across the country made the cut at the maiden edition of the scholarship.
Chukwu Farmer is 18 years old and a 100-level medical student at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. He joins other 45 lucky 100-level students drawn from 30 states of the Federation, the FCT, and others nominated by recognized women's societies at the banquet hall of the Presidential Villa for the first National Scholarship Program, flagged off by the Renewed Hope Initiative for indigent students in tertiary institutions. With the 1 million naira scholarship per annum for 4 years, he says his dream of becoming a medical doctor has now become easier.
When I finished my WAEC, I've been thinking about how will I go about university? How will I be able to pay for the books that I'll get to study in the university?
It has reduced a lot of load in my father's head.
Education is one of the 5 key areas of intervention by the Renewed Hope Initiative, and the National Scholarship Award will complement the student loan scheme of the federal government to further give access to indigent students seeking tertiary education.
It's a commitment and a promise that we make today to identify with the youth of Nigeria, to say to them that their dreams and aspirations matter. Through this program, we seek not only to provide financial assistance, but also to foster an environment where talent is nurtured.
While urging the beneficiaries to take their studies seriously, as their CGPA will be taken into consideration in subsequent years, the First Lady also encouraged them to acquire vocational skills. To be eligible, a beneficiary must have a good academic standing with proof of admission.
If we all support the cause of these gentlemen and ladies, especially in their educational pursuits, then we could have played our role in building a strong and virile nation, not only for now, but indeed the future.
Coming from university environment myself, I know there are a lot of brilliant and indigent students. With this kind of initiative, of course, it's going to go a long way to support the academic activities in school.
In the State House, Adeni Taiwo, NTA News.
Now let's bring you up to speed with other news. Borno State government has announced 36.4 million naira as palliatives for 1,215 corps members posted to Borno State, with each getting 30,000 naira. Governor Babagana Umara Zulum announced the intervention when he visited the NYC orientation camp days after he attended their swearing-in following reopening of the camp in Maiduguri after 12 years of closure due to insurgency. Mohammed Goni reports.
It was the second visit to temporary NYC orientation camp by Governor Zulum since reopening, where he also allocated 100 bags of rice, 10 cows, 10 bags of 100 kg of beans, and 10 gallons of cooking oil for special meal to be prepared for the corps members during their ongoing 3 weeks orientation course. The governor charged the corps members to adhere to camp rules by living peacefully among themselves and engaging in acts that will foster peace in the country. He expressed gratitude to the federal government for improving the security situation in Borno State, which enabled the return of NYC orientation camp in Maiduguri.
I want to assure you that the government of Borno State, under my distinguished leadership, will do everything possible to ensure that you carry out your responsibilities without fear.
For years, the federal government suspended hosting of NYC orientation camp in Maiduguri due to activities of insurgents, with corps members deployed to Borno State, hosted in Bauchi and Katsina among other states for their 3 weeks orientation, after which they are deployed to Borno for the service year. In Maiduguri, Mohammed Goni, NTA News.
The Nigerian Air Force says it will continue to intensify security surveillance around communities affected by criminal activities. Commanding Officer Special Operations for the Nigerian Air Force Bauchi Air Vice Marshal Enel Wong Effiong stated this when he paid a courtesy visit on Governor Bala Mohammed of Bauchi State. Awal Abdullahi reports.
Following the increasing cases of criminal activities along Lemebura Forest in Toro and Yankari Forest in Alkaleri local government areas of Bauchi State, the Nigerian Air Force says it will intensify security surveillance around the affected communities.
The commitment and the cooperation of the Nigerian Air Force and also to assure you that you can count on our support when it comes to security.
The situation is so bad that the activities of the armed forces in Zamfara and other places is making our most secure state to be vulnerable. Bandits are coming here in numbers and they appear to be overwhelming us by the power and the persistence and that they are showing. We really need your constant surveillance so that you can frighten them to leave our places.
Meanwhile, the governor has also granted audience to the newly posted sector commander of the Federal Road Safety Corps, Patrick Ikaba, where he stressed the need for collaborations toward mitigating accidents and road traffic violations. In Bauchi, Awal Abdullahi, NTA News.
Gombe State government would continue to provide those infrastructure that are critical to the transformation of the state. Emmanuel Akila reports that Governor Mohammed Inua Yahya said this shortly after inspecting projects within the state capital.
Notable among the ongoing projects inspected by Governor Mohammed Inua Yahya is the Gombe Mega Motor Park, which cost the state government 7.6 billion naira. The motor park, which has facilities such as hotel, worship centers and shopping malls among others, is expected to become operational before the end of the year. Interacting with operators of satellite motor parks within the state capital, Governor Inua Yahya assured them of improved business opportunities at the new motor park. Next is the Gombe State Sharia Court of Appeal, which the contractor puts at 60% completion, also expected to be delivered by the end of 2023. Other projects inspected are development layouts, roads, and the long-abandoned international market.
In this area specifically, that have not been served for long. Inshallah, by October, going by their promise, they will deliver, and this place will be linked to the rest of the town, and they will have all the facilities of an urban settlement. We shall make sure that we take care of the interests of everybody as we are expanding and growing in the way that we make Gombe a modern city.
The people are happy, saying the projects are critical to the socio-economic development of the state. Governor Inua Yahya says nothing would distract his administration from delivering its campaign promises. In Gombe, Emmanuel Akila, NTA News.
Talking bilateral relations, the federal government of Nigeria has refuted the fake news making the rounds on some media platforms that Nigeria's ambassador to the Republic of Niger, Mohammed Usman, has been expelled from the country. A statement by the spokesperson, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, urged the public to disregard such news. The statement added that the federal government warns against any fake news that can jeopardize its efforts to bring about peace in the Republic of Niger. Talking health matters, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, says it is monitoring the new subvariant of the Omicron variant of the SARS-CoV-2 virus named EG.5 and BA.2.86. The EG.5 has been reported in 51 countries, and the World Health Organization has classified EG.5 as a variant of interest and conducted a risk assessment which found this new variant poses a low risk. The NCDC Director General Dr. Ifedayo Adetifa says no new subvariant of the Omicron variant of COVID-19 has been identified in Nigeria, and the agency's COVID-19 technical group is closely monitoring the situation. The People's Democratic Party has inaugurated the Bayelsa State Governorship Campaign Council, chaired by the Governor of Taraba State, Agbo Kefas. Timothy Yusuf reports.
The 11 November 2023 PDP Governorship Election Campaign Council for Bayelsa State has the mandate to ensure the re-election of the incumbent governor, Doyediri. Chairman of the Campaign Council and Taraba State Governor, Agbo Kefas, restates PDP's stance that it would not take opposition parties for granted, especially the APC.
Our campaign is not merely a quest for power. It is a commitment to transformative leadership that fosters growth, equity, and unity.
The election we are going into is an election like everyone has spoken here, that we believe that we have won.
National Deputy Chairman South of the PDP, Ambassador Taufik Arakbaja, on behalf of the National Working Committee, emphasized that Bayelsa State is a stronghold of PDP, expressing belief that the party will retain the state. Meanwhile, a member of the PDP Governorship Campaign Council for the November 11 election in Kogi State and chieftain of the party in Ogun State, Otumba Segun Sowunmi, at a media briefing at the party's headquarters in Abuja, emphasized that some of the issues confronting the nation, including accountability and justice, stabilizing the naira, security, national cohesion, the economy and national reorientation, need urgent attention. Timothy Yusuf, NTA News.
We'll pause for some messages. We'll be back in a moment. Do stay. You're welcome back. In the wake of the 2023 seasonal climate prediction by NIMET and flood outlook by NISA, which predicted an overwhelming flood disaster beyond that of the 2022, which attracted global attention. Since then, the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, has been engaging intervening stakeholders on the need to prioritize prevention to minimize casualties through the use of disaster risk reduction mechanism. Ilyasu Yakubu reports that some states, including the Federal Capital Territory, are already experiencing a bit of the disaster.
178 local government areas in 32 states, including the FCT, fall within the high-risk areas of flooding, and 224 local government areas in 35 states and the FCT are within the moderate flood risk areas. In view of this threatening scenario, the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, kick-started campaigns for all states of the Federation to create a local organizing committee on flood disaster, clearing of drainages and refuse dumps, as well as mainstreaming of disaster risk reduction mechanisms which focus on preventive disaster reduction. NEMA's Director General Mustafa Habib Ahmed said state and local actors must take responsibility as first responders to ensure proper arrangements are put in place to reduce the level of casualties in the event of disasters.
We advise the states
to set up community volunteers and LEMCs. And not only that, so that they can also start clearing water channels, clear drainages. There should be some kind of a predictable amount for the LEMCs and SEMAs. A lot of states have taken the issue very seriously, and I believe there will be a lot of difference this year due to the readiness and the proactiveness.
More states are already experiencing some devastation, including the FCT, with the Trademore estate, which was overwhelmed by flood waters.
We have carried out sensitization up to the grassroots, ensuring that we feel that we need to educate the public and the communities, and then ensure that they don't put dump refuse indiscriminately or build indiscriminately.
The United Nations General Assembly in 2015 introduced the disaster risk reduction mechanism across the globe to reduce the level of casualties during disasters. In Abuja, Ilyasu Yakubu, NTA News.
This report set the pace for our conversation this evening on Weekend File, and I have in the studio Director General, Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, Clement Nze, and Dr. Onimode Bandele, Director Research Planning and Forecasting, NEMA, to talk on these strategies and efforts that states are putting to ensure that there's no recurrence of the flood disaster that happened in 2022. Now, let me begin with the Director General, NISA. Mr. Clement, it's that season again, and NISA has predicted a flood outlook for this year, which envisaged overwhelming level of disaster beyond that of 2022, which is actually scary, which attracted the attention of the entire world. Now, what is the level of collaboration with some of the intervening agencies on the need to put mechanisms in place to mitigate this likely devastation?
Thank you so much, and hello, fellow Nigerians. There's a great level of collaboration between the relevant agencies at the federal level. Like you noticed, the DG of NEMA speaking, mentioned some data and what to be done to reduce the impact of flooding in 2023. The three major agencies at the federal level, Nigeria Meteorological Agency, NIMET, Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, NISA, National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA. We have a lot of interagency collaborations that is quite seamless in terms of our operations. The prediction by NIMET in terms of the amount of rainfall to expect in the course of the year is part of input data with which NISA worked to come up with the level of flooding to be expected in the course of the year. And also, down the line, what NEMA is already doing also derives from such a document. So there's a lot of interagency collaboration. Yes, we have already seen even as early as April this year, 2023, Nigeria began to witness some level of flood disaster, especially in certain part of Nigeria. And it has already gone through even to the northern parts of Nigeria. And as we inch already, we're not even inching into the peak of flood or rainfall in the year. We're already inside it. The months of July, August, September, and lately, because of climate change, October has fallen in within the period of heavy flooding in Nigeria. So we're already inside it, and we're monitoring the situation as a hydrological agency that have been watching the trend across the country.
Indeed, the predictions has raised a lot of concerns. And now let me bring in Dr. Onimode from NEMA. You are at the center of it all. When everything has happened, you have to go there and bring succor and cushion the effect of the flood itself. And in March, you had a stakeholders meeting with states and other stakeholders on the need to step up on the mitigation effort, and NEMA has been emphasizing to all the states of the Federation to create local organizing committees to achieve bottom-up approach as first responders. So how far with the responses from the state government, and is the meeting you had in March bearing fruit?
Yeah, thank you, presenter, and good evening, Nigerians. Before I talk of the meeting we had in March, after the 2022 flood, there were lessons learned by the agency, and this made the agency to get started very early. Apart from getting across to the state, we needed to build the capacity of stakeholders, SEMAs, and our staff. This started early in the year in February with the training on emergency operation centers of SEMAs and staff of the agency by the U.S. Forest Service. Following this, we had another training for our coordinators, the zonal, territorial, and operation office coordinators, and all chief executive officers of SEMA. This training was anchored by the Bournemouth University Disaster Management Center. All these are aimed at bringing the SEMAs to the same level in terms of capacity. So following the seasonal climate prediction by NIMET and the release of the annual flood outlook by NISA, letters were written to states. We didn't just stop our writing letters to state from NEMA. The DG, along with his colleagues from NIMET and NISA, visited some states. The first to be visited was Akwa Ibom, where this message was delivered to the chief executive of the state. And from our zonal offices, the report we are getting indicates that most of the states are on board and they are living up to expectation. They have been having collaborative meetings, and just to ensure that at the national level we are not found wanting, at about 2 weeks ago, we had the National Emergency Coordination Forum, which looked at each sector at the preparedness towards the 2023 flood. So summarily, I would say the states are coming up with a lot of effort. Let me mention there is a particular state that have desilted a particular river that causes flood in the north. In the south too, they are doing the same thing. So with what is in place, we are sure that even with the flood of 2023, the effect will not be as devastating as it was in 2022. I'm
still going to stay with you. Some states in the during the 2022 flood disaster were, could not be reached, and the disaster was out of proportion, actually. So what efforts are you making to ensure that you reach those hard-to-reach areas and give them humanitarian assistance?
If you say hard to reach, there is no word that is hard to reach, just because most of the people who inhabit those areas will refuse to come out when they hear the warning. Because the water rises, it is expected that information gets to them. That's why my DG emphasized the setting up of local emergency management committees and emergency management volunteers at the local level, so that these people can easily go out to those communities and advise them to move. So with continuous information sharing and appeal to Nigerians, I'm sure they will come out of those places and they can easily be reached where they are resettled during the flood, if it occurs.
Okay, Dr. Onimude, when we return from this break, we'll be talking about Lagbo Dam and its devastating effect on the country. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. Flooding can be effectively managed through proactive action plan for prevention and mitigation, including concerted efforts by communities. Stakeholders believe these points are crucial in addressing flooding in a state like Lagos. Larry Bele has more on this.
Flooding can better be managed with proper planning and provision of necessary infrastructure. In Lagos, flooding most times is aggravated by poor and indifferent environmental actions, including rapid urbanization and inadequate provision of facilities commensurate with the state's urban expansion. There's also the challenge of sea level rise due to climate change, which requires deliberate hindsight planning.
When you do the groins, so long as you build them to specification, you will now prevent the erosion, and on top of that, the sand will start coming back.
Other communities in Okuaja and other things, we were there, we have been there for the past 4, 5, 7 years. We've been going there to enlighten them, and the best thing for them is when the state government is ready to make use of that facilities, they should guide themselves and relocate to a better place.
Always have sea level rise, ozone surge. So this is another problem we have in Etiosa, both a flash flood and we have ozone surge. So what do? We are now looking for a way where we can plead to the federal government and have an adaptation fund, because we need fund. We need to build an ocean breaker.
Another pertinent challenge is poor documentation of displacements, losses and fatalities, so that stakeholders can better understand the magnitude of what they are dealing with. In Lagos, Larry Bilayi, NTA News.
Thank you so much, Larry, for that report. And I still have in the studio Director General, Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, Clement Nze, and Dr. Onimode Bandele, Director Research Planning and Forecasting, NEMA. And we've been discussing the outline for the 2023 flood and way to mitigate it. Let me come to you, Mr. Clement. It's now time for reservoirs, rivers, and dams to overfill. And we have another emergency at hand now, that Labdo Dam in Cameroon is threatening to release water from its dam, which of course portends danger for Nigeria. What do you think is the way forward in the event that the dam releases water and other factors too?
Okay, let me put it in a proper perspective. The release of water from Lado Dam for 2023 has not in any form put any community in danger. Talk about emergency. Now there was a press release by Adamawa State government on the, I think on the around the 21st or thereabout of this month, that informing the citizens in Adamawa State that Cameroon has opened their dam, Lado Dam. And such news item was sent to me by my permanent secretary. And I had to make an inquiry from Cameroon. Eventually, I got in touch with the hydrologist on the dam, who informed me that they opened the dam on by 10 a.m. in the morning of 14th of August. So they have begun to spill water at the rate of about 200 cubic meters per second. So that's what they are doing. And after about a week, 2 weeks rather, they reduce the quantity. Now, release of water from dams is a proper reservoir operation to safeguard the integrity of the dam. What has been released so far has nothing to, there's no cause for alarm in terms of downstream dwellers, both in Cameroon and down to Nigeria. So it's a normal operation. So far, there's no cause for alarm in terms of the water release. It's a normal procedure in dam operation. On the River Niger axis, where the Kainji and Jeba dams, even Shiroro, also on River Kaduna, they are impounding water for now. No release of water yet from any of the dams within Nigeria. They are impounding. And from the upper catchment in Niger, the water level in Niamey is still at the normal level. Even though Cameroon has started releasing water, our measurement at the downstream, the confluence in Lokoja, is still quite below the corresponding value in 2022. So this just informs Nigerians that as of today, there's no cause for alarm by the water released from Cameroon. And also inland dams in Nigeria, there's no problem yet.
So when will you begin to sound the alarm now?
You see, we are getting to the peak of flooding, rainfall in Nigeria. By that time, towards middle, end of September. And then also the upper catchment of other countries, other 8 countries in West and Central Africa, might be experiencing their own heavy rainfall. That is the time that we expect that spilling of water in a higher proportion might commence within Nigeria and in Cameroon in case they experience heavy rainfall in the northern province of Cameroon. So, but for now, there are no issues at hand, but we keep monitoring the situation and we'll be informing Nigerians accordingly. In fact, the Foreign Affairs has issued a circular to that effect. I mean, informing Nigeria that Cameroon has opened their dam.
Okay, let me bring in Mr. Onimode now. We talked about synergy with state government, and we saw what happened in the 2022 flood disaster, where there was a blame game back and forth between state government and the federal government, that is NEMA, that you are representing. Now, we talked about the meeting in March also. I asked you this question. The meeting in March brought up proactive issues, raised a lot of pertinent questions. How have you been able to liaise with states to ensure that people in flood-prone areas move to safer grounds so that the flood will not destroy their homes and properties?
Thank you very much. Like I said, after the releases by NIMET and NISA, campaigns have been taken to the state government, and these have been cascaded to the end user. Those are the people living in those flood-prone areas. So they are aware, and information is in place that once the water level start rising, they will move them to already identify higher grounds. In some states, there are permanent structures. Where there are no permanent structures, state government have identified schools and public buildings where these people can move to. And on the part of NEMA, arrangement has been made with service providers to bring food and non-food items, as the case may be, once these people are moved to those higher grounds. So, and the synergy is not just between us and the state, even with the military. The DG has paid some visits to some service chiefs so that they can extend their assistance to the agency when need be, when this flood occurs. So the synergy is working, and we're expecting that it will be better. If the flood occurs, it will be better managed than that of 2022.
Indeed, Mr. Clement, is there no flood policy in this country that can focus, define objectives for flood governance, prevention, control, and management? If that policy exists, is it working?
Okay, thank you so much. That's a very pertinent question. Late last year, precisely November 3rd, following our advisory to the federal government or to the presidency through the supervising minister, Mr. President constituted or directed that a presidential committee be constituted to look into the perennial flood incidents across the country and to proper solution. So the committee was given, the ministers were given 90 days. And then 2 levels of meetings were held, steering committee, ministers and permanent secretaries, and there are technical other people from the different agencies. We worked seriously across the country, and the document has been forwarded to Mr. President, to the presidency. And looking at the joint press briefing given last night by the 2 honorable ministers of water resources and sanitation, they equally mention about that document. So we're expecting at the end of the day, a flood policy will be put in place. So for today, for as now, there's no flood policy, but we're working towards it to ensure that certain details or information are given at the appropriate and action that will be taken to in times of flooding across the country. So as of today, there is no flood policy, but we have already begun the process to arrive at that.
Okay, that's great, Mr. Clement, and I believe this conversation is a continuing conversation because the rain is still falling.
Yeah.
Already, it has already impacted communities, and I believe we'll bring you on the program again to discuss further when the floods begin. Director General, Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, Clement Nze, thank you so much for coming on Weekend File. And Dr. Onimode Bandele, Director Research Planning and Forecasting, NEMA, thank you so much for coming. I'm sure you'll be back on this program to talk more. Thank you so much for coming.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
We'll take a break. When we return, the weekend file continues. You're welcome back. Sport update is next. And that's NTA weekend file for this week. Thanks so much for your time. I am Jummai Yusuf.